What's going on, family? I wanted to take this opportunity to discuss the Shea Moisture controversy and my thoughts concerning being a Sheabassador with the brand and if I continue to move forward representing the brand. So before we start, I made some points I wanted to make sure I covered so I can stay on track. So I'm sure you all by now have seen the commercials in question that was calling for boycotts of Shea Moisture and is causing a lot of people to be upset to the point of throwing away their products and wanting to not be involved with the company anymore based off the commercial. So I will admit, when I first saw the commercial, I too felt a little bit of an insult to whereas Shea Moisture has been centered around Black women for so many years, and to see a commercial to where it seemed as though the commercial was centered more around white women and the blacker women or the women with the kinkier hair texture seemed to come towards the last part of the commercial, or was seen more of an afterthought in the eyes of many, caused a lot of uproar. And I'm not going to lie, I was also one of those people when I saw the commercial, and it really was to the point where I was really in my feelings about the commercial, because I've been with Shea Moisture since I went natural 6 years ago, and I've been very loyal with the products I was using. And so to finally find a brand that worked for my hair and to be loyal to them for so many years, and to see a commercial like that to where it seemed like the people like me, the people who were putting most of the money, if not all of the money in the beginning to Shea Moisture's success, and then see us kind of pushed to the side, it seemed like an insult. The way I took it, honestly, was I felt like now that they had received the monies from the Black community, that it was okay to kind of just push us aside and then just focus on the other sectors. And that's how I felt when I watched the commercial. And to be honest with you, I had tried to do my research, and between looking at the comments on the Facebook page, between reading the explanation given by the company, and between trying to write them, and at the time I didn't receive a response, I had pretty much came to the conclusion that I was not willing to represent the company any further, because even though my following is small, even though this channel is small and whatnot, and I have not been a blogger for very long, what I still care about when I create my content is being transparent and having full integrity with what I share with you all. And at the time, I felt as though I could no longer continue to make videos promoting the use of Shea Moisture products when I felt as though I was an afterthought. So what I look like trying to convince you to continue to buy something when I myself was no longer interested in continuing to buy those products. So I had my mind made up, and it just so happens that before I was about to submit an email to say I no longer wanted to be an ambassador, the CEO, Mr. Rich Dennis, actually took the time to reach out to every last one of the Sheabassadors for a conference call last night at 7 p.m. Central Time here in Texas, so 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And he took the time to address the concerns. He gave his explanation of what he thought happened, and he gave us an opportunity to ask him whatever questions we wanted to ask, and he did do his best to answer as many of us in the time allotted. And what I took from that particular conversation was I had to kind of pause and step outside the situation and look at it from more than just my anger, and look at it from two other different perspectives. I had to look at this from a business perspective, and I had to look at this from someone who was not like me in terms of their perspective. And so as a company, there are some good points that was made. There are many, mostly white companies that have been making pitches for white people for years and years. And then later on, they finally started to include black women in their lines. And now, for example, Pantene and Garnier and L'Oreal, we have special lines for ethnic hair as part of their campaigns now. And so if no one made an uproar when the white company decided to branch out to ethnic, it seemed a little bit of hypocrisy for a black-owned company to do the same thing and decide to reach out to white people for their line or for their inclusion into our products. So that was one aspect that I didn't think about at the time, but it made perfect sense. What I also had to realize was that even though Shea Moisture may have been mostly built with the likes of 4B, 4C hair in the beginning, we have to understand that in order for any company, black-owned, white-owned, for any company to grow, at some point you're going to have to think about expansion. So with that being said, Shea Moisture has over 150 products available for almost all different hair types, and they are going to continue to expand and try to include as many hair types as possible, which was what caused us to fall in love with Shea Moisture in the first place, because they created a line that did not really exist for people with hair like me. And it would seem kind of selfish for us to want to keep that particular sector all to ourselves when we as black women have fought for inclusion for decades for many things, and to finally have something that's successful, why would we not want to share it? I read some comments to where we can't have nothing to ourselves or any things of that nature. And my response to that is, why do you want to keep something all to yourself? If the tables were turned and another race wanted to keep everything to themselves, you'll be upset. So if other races can share aspects of their products or aspects of their culture with the rest of the world, then we should be more than willing to do the same thing. And it's just a product line. It's not like it's anything deeper than that. This is a product line that was created out of necessity because there were no products that was provided to a lot of women of color with natural hair at the time. And now we have grown and flourished so much that we have the ability to expand and offer products that covers everyone. And this isn't just concerning white people. The inclusion is bigger than that. There are women who are biracial who have hair like me. There are white people that don't have the stereotypical bone straight hair, and a lot of the white products don't work for them as well. And so they take to Shea Moisture because it's something that works for them. And at the end of the day, these products are products that women use because out of spending so much time trying to find something to work, Shea Moisture was something that they finally could use that worked for them. Shea Moisture still remains a company to stand behind because they are still using all natural ingredients. Their money is still going towards the advancement of women of color. It is still going back to the countries that are helping to provide these natural ingredients for their products. And none of that has wavered since this unfortunate incident has taken place. And so as a business, that was just a few situations that I just couldn't overlook. And it forced me to step out of my feelings and think about things a little bit harder. Also, in terms of the comments of formulas changing and things of that nature, we did address that. And what we were told was that as the FDA changes their regulations, their ingredient list must reflect those changes. So if 7 years ago Shea Moisture was saying one of the ingredients was shea butter, if the FDA came around a few years later and said you have to use the Latin name, you can't just say shea butter, well, your next bottle is going to say the Latin name for shea butter. Now, if you do not know what that is, then of course when you compare your new label with an old label, it'll seem as though the products have been switched or the formula has been tampered with in some way, shape, or form. But Mr. Dennis assured us that in no way, shape, or form any of the ingredients were changed in terms of saving money or anything of that nature. What the formula was before, the formula is. What a lot of people have to remember about these products is, again, a lot of these products contain natural ingredients. And so as with many natural ingredients are more perishable than a non-natural ingredient such as mineral oil or something of that nature. So that's why not all bottles look the same in terms of the viscosity of the liquids that you use. And you also got to keep in mind some places hold products on the shelves longer than others. You may not have gotten a batch that was made around the same time as another store, and so that also affects it. What a lot of people also forget, and I can attest to this, as your hair texture changes, a lot of products may or may not continue to work for you. So the same was for me. When I first went natural, the Curl Enhancement Smoothie was a perfect accompaniment to my hair, and it had been for so many years. But unfortunately, once my hair reached this point, the Curl Enhancement Smoothie doesn't work as good on its own like it did when my hair was in its shorter phase. It has to be combined with something. When my hair was short, the smoothie alone was all I needed. Now I have to combine it with the oil, or I have to make sure my hair is deep conditioned with a leave-in and it's already nice and soft before the Curl Enhancement Smoothie will really take hold and do what I want it to do for my hair. So that's my personal experience with one of the products, and so I understood that, and so that's the other fact I wanted to cover. For those of you who wish to boycott, I completely understand you're wanting to boycott, because as I said, I too was very upset watching the commercials. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I read over the response, what's the word I want to say? Originally, it kind of came off to me as an auto-generated response. To me, it didn't naturally seem like it was coming from a genuine place. And at first, I understood what they were saying, but it still really wasn't enough to convince me to change my mind with what I originally was going to do. And what actually caused me to think differently of this was, as we created more dialogue talking about potential plans of boycotting, I came up with a few thoughts. My first thought was the hypocrisy behind doing a boycott. Like I mentioned earlier, companies like L'Oreal, Pantene, and Revlon have been inclusive of minorities in their lines in the recent years. And again, if we didn't raise a stink when white companies started making something to include people of color, it seems very hypocritical for us to have an opportunity to have a line, but we don't want to include people who are not like us. So the hypocrisy behind that was something I couldn't really get behind. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we have fought for inclusion for so long, it seems only the right thing to do to want to encourage inclusion with our products and not exclusion. We know what it's like to be excluded from many things. So why would we want to turn around and do the exact same thing? We didn't like how that felt, so we wouldn't be the better person if we turned around and did the exact same thing with this line. Also, the hypocrisy behind boycotting is if you're going to boycott Shea Moisture because of this commercial, again, I am not arguing with your reasoning for wanting to boycott. That is your personal decision, and if that is what you wish, then so be it. But I also want to place in front of you, if your logic behind boycotting is because you feel that Shea Moisture failed to live up to its ideals of what it represents, then I ask you to go back and look at its mission statement, to go back and look at its hashtags, that everybody gets love, the million ways to Shea. We have always been all about inclusion for everyone from the very beginning. And I think if you take the time to reflect on that, for some company that built so much trust over so many years, and for it to only take 1 or 2 commercials to cause you to want to throw away that relationship, it says a little bit more about you in terms of your loyalty towards a company than what they are. Because on the one hand, yes, they did something wrong, and at least they took the time to A, immediately acknowledge what they did was wrong, B, to have the CEO personally reach out to its ambassadors and offer apology, give an explanation, and be willing to let us ask him whatever we wish, and that he would answer us wholeheartedly to the best of his ability. If that isn't a company willing to try to learn from its mistake and move forward because of its want to continue to spread love to everybody and try to be the best company it can be, then I don't really know what is. So if you want to end your loyalty to Shea Moisture, so be it. But if you're going to boycott, then I challenge you to keep your morals with everything that's in your house. And anything you bought from Target, you need to throw that away too. Anything, if you drink Pepsi, you need to throw that away. If you do your research into a lot of products you have, you may be surprised that a lot of products you may use in your house, its origins have a very ugly background, from your toothpaste to your pancakes to your rice to some of your beauty products that you've been using for years. If you look up its origins, it's had a very nasty beginning, but yet you're continuing to use them. So if you're going to boycott Shea Moisture, then in order to keep your integrity intact, it's only fair that you're willing to boycott everything else. So I'll just throw that at you. Also, I want to point out that a lot of people are questioning who's running the company. And yes, there are white people who are heads of many departments of Shea Moisture, and that is a true statement. But again, this was not an issue until this commercial came out. And let's be real, a lot of us have been loyal to Shea Moisture for years and did not care who was involved in the marketing or who was involved in running this or creating that. We've been continuing to buy Shea Moisture products and had no clue who was working in the corporate sector in terms of this brand. So you didn't care then. In my opinion, it shouldn't matter now. And like I said, all of this would not have occurred if this commercial hadn't taken place. So that leads me to believe that This is more of just being nitpicky to try to find another reason to justify wanting to boycott or shame a company because of a mistake that it was made. Also, there's a lot of comments that say white people have tons of products and why can't we have our own? Now, it is true that white people have a larger collection of product lines than we do, but you also have to understand that not all white hair is the same, and many whites were actually polled from Shea Moisture on their hair products, and a good bit of them admitted that their products do not work for them because they did not fit the thin, straight type of hair that a lot of those products are marketed for. So they need a product to use just like we do. Again, you also have to point out that not all white women have straight hair. Some women have curly hair. Some white women have thicker hair than others. The same textural issues we have, white women and men experience the exact same thing. We're all different. We all have different hair needs. We all have different hair types. And Shea Moisture is a brand that is doing its best to try to accommodate as many of those issues as possible. And that's something you actually should be happy to be a part of. And that's something for a black founding company and a black owned company. That's something to really be proud of. For a race of people who was excluded for so many years to create such an outstanding brand that actually goes out to include everyone from the start is something any Sheabassador should be proud to stand behind and be proud to represent. And so there's that. And lastly, my final reason for me changing my mind on my decision with Shea Moisture was actually my encounter with the Sheabassadors. That conference call gave me an opportunity to actually see the faces of the many Sheabassadors that we have that's representing Shea Moisture this year. And I was actually pretty stunned to see all the different races and the different hair textures. I've met men, I've met women with hair kinkier than mine, I've met all kinds of women with different hair types, I've met white women, and for us, this situation actually caused us to create a very, very insightful dialogue that allowed all of us to share with each other our thoughts and concerns dealing with this controversial commercial and how we felt about moving forward, moving on, or potentially leaving, and to actually hear what everyone else had to say, what the Sheabassadors represented in that conference, to me, was the epitome of what Shea Moisture's goal is in terms of wanting to include everybody. So with that being said, again, the company made a really bad mistake. I'm not going to excuse them. I'm not going to sit here and try to coddle what they did, because these were grown adults. These were people who took the time to make this commercial, and they released it thinking it was a good idea, and it failed miserably. So they know they messed up. They're doing everything they can to take responsibility for it, and they're doing their best to reach out to everybody and try to make as much of amends as possible and try to make better decisions moving forward. Again, this is a company run by humans, not by machines. No human is perfect. Everybody's going to make a mistake at some point. And I personally choose to give this company a chance to let its actions reflect on their words. So I decided that I was no longer on the edge of wanting to boycott and sever my ties with Shea Moisture. In fact, this conversation with the Sheabassadors and the CEO actually reaffirmed my loyalty to Shea Moisture and actually convinced me to remain as a proud Sheabassador for this company, and I will continue to do as such for the remainder of the year. So again, those of you who made your decision to leave Shea Moisture, I wholeheartedly understand your reason. There is no reason to insult people who choose to stay with Shea Moisture, and vice versa. We have no reason to say anything negative to those who choose to leave. You made your choices and we've made ours. Those of you who chose to leave, I apologize that you feel that way, but I completely understand your logic, and so that's that. For those of you who took the time to actually think about this situation on a grander scale than just the commercial, and you took the time to consider the actual business as a whole, and you took the time to actually look at Shea Moisture's track record and look at all the good that was done, and you're looking at all the good that was done compared to this one fiasco and their willingness to try to fix it and try to continue to do better, I think it's worth giving them an opportunity. If nothing else, it's worth giving Shea Moisture an opportunity to at least work to redeem this situation. Now, obviously, if this is continued or if things become worse after them promising to do better, then that's a whole different topic. But I think we should give Shea Moisture an opportunity to make amends with what's going on and give them an opportunity to set in motion their promises of what they want to do. And I believe in the CEO, I believe in the company, and I believe in my fellow Sheabassadors, and I believe in what Shea Moisture stands for, and that's everybody gets love. And for that reason, I choose to stay as a Sheabassador for Shea Moisture. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And if you have any questions, comments, or concern, please leave it down below. I'll do my best to address whatever's been placed and try to get back to you guys in a timely fashion. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.